Are we up?
Takes a minute for YouTube.
Well, they're just always gonna be behind us by about a minute. All right, so, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the April 24th, 2025 meeting of the Village Board of Trustees. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Must have neglected to inform everybody that we're now, this is a jacket and tie.
Really?
We're gonna be dressing up. No, I just came, I want to, take a moment to a couple things that have been going on. One is I just, left the NAACP Freedom Fund dinner up in Suffern. I couldn't stay, but we did provide certificates of appreciation to the honorees who were getting honored tonight at the event. I also want to let you know that Saturday at 11 is the Fresh Market is having a grand reopening. They took the very, I think, bold step of soliciting feedback from consumers as to what they wanted in a local community grocery store. And they took all that information to heart and they revamped their offerings. And so they're having a ribbon cutting, sort of a ribbon cutting on Saturday at 11. I encourage people to go down and I encourage people to take, if they have some shopping to do this weekend for groceries, to take a shot. Go see what they have at Fresh Market. It's really good for them to be in the downtown of our village, and we want to support local businesses as much as possible. And speaking of supporting local businesses, it is the Nyack Restaurant Week. It's Restaurant Week in Nyack. It started yesterday. It runs till I think May 1st or so, May 3rd maybe, end of next week. All the participating restaurants have special menus, and it looks for the ones I've seen, they look very nice. You know, for $25 you can get lunch and it's 3 courses, and $45 for a 3-course dinner and stuff like that. So I encourage you, if you have an opportunity this weekend, to check out the local restaurants, support our local restaurants. We need them to do well. Anything from the Village Board of Trustees?
Yeah, I have something. I just wanted to, on?
Yeah.
Okay, good. My hearing is going, so I can't even hear myself.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so last Saturday on the 19th, we had the Nyack Community Cleanup. I want to thank Keep Rockland Beautiful, particularly to Timothy Morales, Sam Schaefer, Johnny, Sarah Tucker. Nyack Fresh Market, they also participated and they handed out water and apples and Gatorade. And of course, the YMCA that allowed us to use their parking lot. But most importantly, I want to thank the 90+ volunteers who actually came together and got their hands dirty and cleaned up areas around the village, in South Nyack, in Central Nyack, even on 59. So I want to thank everybody for participating in that. And we'll do it again, probably in the fall. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I attended a Rivertown film last night.
Go ahead.
No.
She doesn't
No,
like
no, no.
Mike. She doesn't like.
Yeah, I forget you. That's why I was like, never mind.
Could you hear me? Oh, no.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, thanks. All right, sorry. It was a documentary. The name of the film was That Kid, and it was directed by Ashley Dawson. And it was really well done. It was centered around Nyack Plaza was one of the places that it was filmed, and all the filming took place in Nyack, and a lot of local people from the area was in the film, and it was really nicely done, and just wanted to mention that. A really well done film. That's it. Nothing from me.
Just 2 other things that I forgot to mention. My notes did not save. And one of them is to really send a shout out and a thank you to Tyrone Yogi Williams, who really, with a small group of people, never done it before. They put together a really great Easter egg hunt in Memorial Park. Hopefully it's the first annual of these, that they'll do it every year. It's a great event for the kids. It's a great, they have one in Piermont. I took my kids to it when I was younger. They never had one in Nyack. So I think it's great to have one. And he really did do this on his own, other than us allowing him the use of the park. He put it together basically from scratch, and that's really impressive. It's tough to do. So thank him. I also want to let you know that also this weekend, congratulations to Strawtown Studio, which is having over in Upper Nyack, is having their 20th anniversary celebration this weekend. Also, happy birthday to Andy Stewart, who turned something this week. We don't know what.
Only one, obviously.
And also, the Dogs in Fashion show on Broadway, which is supposed to be Saturday, has been postponed because of the expected inclement weather on Saturday. Okay. With that said, if nobody else from the village board has anything, we'll take public comments on any topic that's not part of our action item agenda, by which I mean that if we actually have two public hearings today. One of them is about modifying regulations regarding adult use retail dispensaries. The other one is about modifying regulations that prescribe the maximum height of fences, walls, and hedges at corner lots. Those won't start before 8 o'clock. Those are the two big things. We also have a bunch of resolutions. If you are here to talk about one of those resolutions or the public hearing, I would ask you to hold your public comments till we get to those issues, so we can have all the public comments and the commentary around the same issue, and it'll keep the narrative cleaner. But if you have a public comments on any other topic that we're not supposed to discuss today, feel free to, if you've already signed in, or feel free to come up.
They're on for the cannabis law.
It's all for the cannabis stuff. Okay, so nobody's here for anything. Is anybody here for anything else? Do we have anybody here for one of the items that's late in the, and I don't see anything. Is Bev Stone here? Or Crystalini? Thomas is not here. Okiyun or Courtney Bullen. If any of those people are here, I'd bring them up because they just have a communication they made to us, but they're not here. All right, so let's go to the adoption of the minutes for April 10th, 2025. I corrected a couple things during the week. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Oh, sorry, can I get it on the table?
Motion.
Second.
Any comments or questions on the minutes?
No.
All right, all in favor of adopting the minutes for April 10th? All opposed, motion carries. Action items, we have a 6.1 resolution accepting the audited voucher summary. That's resolution 25-55. Can I get it on the table?
Second.
Does anybody have any comments or questions? All in favor? All right, 6.2, resolution 25-56. A resolution to call for a New York State Department of Transportation study of improved pedestrian safety at the intersection of High Avenue and Route 9W. Can I get this on the table?
Motion.
Second.
All right, discussion. Andy, we're just asking for a DOT traffic study.
What we really want is a nice crosswalk there for folks who are going between the Walgreens residential areas, neighborhood to the east, etc. But it starts with a study. Presumably, the DOT knows of our interest in that. They've averred that it will happen at some point. One of you guys very nicely reached out to Pat Carroll, our assembly person.
That was Joe.
He wrote a nice letter of support and asked us to pass a resolution to provide further indication of the village's need for this.
And so the resolution is not necessarily a necessary component of this, but it helps push it along.
Yes.
It's a step. Okay, good. All right. Any comments or questions about this? This is absolutely sorely needed. We should absolutely have one. It's crazy. There's no crosswalk there. It is a busy intersection, people crossing. So it's a lot of stuff that goes on right around that corner, particularly since the Walgreens opened. There's a lot of people that go back and forth. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
How come we're not asking for the improvement in is that where the traffic light is? On that?
There is a traffic light at High Avenue and
Yeah.
9W, yes.
Yeah, is that included in this study as well, improving that light?
That's why we're calling for a study. We don't
Okay.
know all the answers. We just know that there's a problem there.
Okay.
Improving it to put what, a left turn signal?
So, yeah, upgrade the light, put a left turn signal, improve the changes, making sure it's in sync with the pedestrian crossing.
Okay.
I know DOT has done that and can do that. It's a matter, but I bring it up for other reasons. We can talk more offline about it.
All right, great. If there's no other comment or question, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Action item 6.3, resolution 25-57, approving the general fund budget. Why don't we push this off for just a moment? We'll come back to it.
Okay.
So we can talk about the budget. Let's try to knock out some of the other resolutions. 6.4, resolution 25-58, approving an application to the New York State Municipal Grant Program for funding to improve Memorial Park. Can I get on the table?
Motion.
Second.
Andy, tell us what this is about.
Believe it or not, even though we've spent over $1 million on the park over the last few years, there's still more work that could be done. Specifically repairs to the basketball court, the skate park, the shoreline around the inlet where there's erosion and the earth is kind of falling down into the river. Some of that area, we currently don't have funding to do those improvements, and we're trying to take a shot at getting another grant.
What's the amount, do we know?
Our ask is probably roughly between $300,000 and $400,000.
And how much is the total grant allotment that they have?
I think it's about 10 million, but I'm not sure.
All right, well, certainly anything anything we can grab for the park, we do. So that's part of what I think in the last few years, we're doing a much better job of really looking for these grant opportunities and applying for them. Because we've got a bunch of grants that we never used to get, not the least. I mean, the New York Forward was a big one, but we had applied for that before. But a lot of these sort of $300,000, $400,000 grants that we didn't used to get that have become very, very important to the village. So good luck with this. Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's hope we get it. Resolution 6.5, 25-59. To schedule a public hearing to consider amending the village code to exempt the Artipee Way municipal parking lot and electric vehicle charging spaces from the prohibition on all-night parking. Can I get this on the table?
So moved.
Second.
What this is about is there's two things going on. One of them is that we do not allow parking on any municipal streets from 3 to 6 p.m. 7 days a week. Can't park overnight on the streets.
AM.
I'm sorry, 3 to 6 a.m. We park during the afternoon. 3 to 6 a.m. overnight. No overnight parking in the lots, no overnight parking on the streets. It came up a couple of weeks ago that people coming from out of town, people have visitors, people it came up sort of a bunch of things in about a 2-week period. A couple of the people who own bars said, when I have a patron and he's over imbibed and he's parked in the lot, I'd like to be able to send him home in a cab and he can come back the next day, get his car, and he's not compelled to move his car because there's no overnight parking. So we have proposed allowing for overnight parking for Saturday morning and Sunday morning. So Friday night and Saturday night, so weekends, allowing for overnight parking in the Artipee lot, which is the big lot near Easter Square. And it would just be that lot for a variety of reasons, but that would be the lot that you'd be allowed to park in overnight. That lot already has a lot of overnight parking because there's a residential permit program there, so people can park there who have a permit. And so we're adding that. We also are adding, technically speaking, people who charge in the chargers that are next to the Easter Square. They're violating the parking law if they park there overnight to charge. But you need some cars need 7 or 8 hours at those chargers to get fully charged. And if you put it in 11 o'clock at night, you're not going to come back at 4 a.m. to pull it out. So we're going to also exempt those spaces as well as the Artipee lot from the 3 to 6 restriction. I believe that we're proposing lifting it for the electrical, for the charging spots 7 days a week. But for Artipee, it would just be on weekends. All right, any questions or comments?
How come we're not sitting as the housing parking authority? Do we need to? For this? Okay, that's all.
Screw them. For those who don't understand, that's also us. Any other comments? I just think this is a good idea. I think we should do it. So we're going to set a public hearing. This is a motion to set the public hearing on Thursday, May 24th. So about a month from now at 8:05 p.m. To consider amending. We'll have the code by then. Well, I think we already have it, but we'll have it by then to look at and study. If there's no other comments or questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 6.6, resolution 25-60. To approve an application by the Reverend of Ignite Church for an event in Memorial Park on Sunday, August 7th, 4 to 7 p.m. Can I get it on the table?
Motion.
Second,
We talked about this a couple weeks ago. We asked for a resolution to allow it. Any comments or questions on it today?
we did speak to them about the noise.
Did we speak to them about the noise, Andy? Andy had a conversation about not the noise, the sound, just the sound. It's not noise, it's music.
It is.
It is sound. It's
It's
just, it
more,
was
yeah,
loud.
it's like loud.
Do we have a decibel meter in the village?
No, we don't.
It's not that
Everybody's
expensive.
got one.
They all, yeah, those, the phones measure them, but we've given them the warning, right?
Okay.
So that's fine. I think that, I mean, we're not gonna send somebody out to go do decibel readings just because.
No, just in case there are complaints or.
If we have complaints, I think if there are complaints, then someone's gotta go down and tell them to turn it down, because then we have to be cognizant of the needs of the people that live in that community, and if it's too loud, it's too loud. But very excited to have them. Hope they have a wonderful event. If there's no other comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 6.7, resolution 25-61 to amend a resolution 25-48 that we approved at our last meeting to change the date of a wedding gathering from April 19th to Saturday, May 17th. Can I get it on the table?
Motion.
Second,
I guess the couple changed the date of their wedding. So we're changing the date that we're allowing them to use Memorial Park. I hope this is not,
Right.
I hope this is, good news and they just the caterer or something like that and not, this isn't a sign of any cold feet of anybody. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. 6.8, resolution 25-62 to approve salary increases for the Nyack Housing Authority staff.
Motion.
Do I need a second?
second,
All right, so this is coming from the fact that because we did not approve budgets for the Nyack Housing Authority for, I believe, the last 2 years, the new chair, former Mayor Don Hammond, is the chair of the Housing Authority Board, has requested that we approve cost of living increases for the staff for fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25. So for the last 2 years, they want an adjustment which would require the Housing Authority to compensate them for back pay. That's the basic idea. We had Don Hammond came to us with this proposal and gave us the numbers. So we also have the numbers, and it was all entirely justified. These people worked without a raise for 2 years that they were supposed to get, but they didn't get it because the budget was never approved, because the budget was never presented to us. Does anybody have any comments or questions? All right. I know this would be much appreciated. So all in favor?
aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And our thanks to Chair Hammond for bringing this to our attention.
Joe, I have one more resolution.
Do we have it here?
Yes, I'm gonna hand it out to you.
Oh, okay.
Let's pass them down.
Oh, I. I think we all.
I think we do.
I think somebody already gave it to you.
Yeah.
We already have this?
All right.
Yeah.
Just one?
I think we have
One
one.
page.
Okay, that's one, yeah.
One page.
But thank you.
Ah, okay. All right, so this is item, we're gonna number it.
63.
No, it's no, I'm saying for the action item. Make it action item,
63.
action item 6.9, resolution 25-63. Authorizing the village administrator and village attorney to evaluate potential acquisition of blighted underutilized properties in the downtown for acquisition and redevelopment via public-private partnership and or eminent domain. Just to correct, partnership is misspelled in the title. Andy, you want to explain what this is about, or I can? Oh, I'm sorry, can I get on the table?
Motion,
Second,
It was motioned, you got that for the filling it in. So yeah, go ahead.
So in short, this is an effort to catalyze reinvestment in properties that are subpar in terms of the rate of utilization. 65 Main Street, which is a derelict building just down the hill from here, hasn't seen any activity for a long time. The Woolworths building has code violations and sort of illegal occupancy on the second floor. The first floor, very underutilized, open once a week or so for motorcycle get together. The building on Bird Street has also been vacant for a really long time. The owner seems to have no interest in trying to bring that back onto the market and invest in it. So this approach is out of frustration that the market has not done its work of fostering appropriate use and reinvestment at the highest level for these buildings. The village has the legal ability to acquire properties that are blighted in the cause of revitalization. That process is extensive. We've hired legal counsel to guide us in that. There are a number of steps involved. The first step is simply this resolution declaring our intent to pursue this approach. There will be future decisions. It requires a planning study to establish the facts of each building and their sort of being out of alignment with the village's vision for its comprehensive plan and the economic revitalization of the downtown. Once that study is complete, which will take a while, the village would get appraisals of the properties, would notify the owners of its interest in acquiring them, offer them the opportunity to sell, and go through a process of negotiation.
A couple of clarifications about this, just things I'll add to what you just said, which is you've laid it out very nicely. One is, all we are authorizing today is for you to start the study and to start the process of looking at properties and whether this is something that is a viable thing for us to do. So we're not approving the acquisition of any properties at this point. So it's really just a study. Number two, just so everybody who's watching is aware, yes, the government has the ability to be able to acquire by eminent domain. It's a process of the state acquiring property owned by private owners if there is a public need for the property, which economic revitalization is one of those recognized needs by the courts that we can acquire property for. Just to be clear, the people who own the property are entitled to get market value for their property. We don't acquire it and not give them market value. Third point I wanted to make is that eminent domain has a very ugly history, particularly in Nyack, where it was misused. Particularly, it's all been memorialized. Everybody knows the history at this point, but the recent documentary about Jackson Avenue laid bare just how the eminent domain was misused in a truly offensive way and really deprived people of the value. And one of the reasons for it being such an aberrant use of eminent domain was that the people who owned the property did not get, besides the fact that it was a misguided attempt to build a mall in the middle of downtown, but for the larger point is that the people who own the property did not get market value for their properties. And that is something that would not happen in this case, that there's going to be a number of procedural safeguards built into here. But on the broader point is that we have properties that are basically sitting like white elephants in the middle of our downtown, and we want them to be occupied by tenants and occupied by owners and have businesses running there. And so our intent would be to acquire them and then to redevelop them with some sort of partner who would come in to provide the equity to be able to do that, and then turn them into properties that have businesses functioning in them. So that's the idea. And all we're doing at this point is approving a study. It's called the blighted study, but it doesn't mean literally blight. It just means an underutilized area that needs economic development. All right, so we'll let the board take it away if they have questions.
No questions, but I do agree with this. I know we're often talking about how best ways to improve our downtown, and I do see this as a good way of doing things. As always, I hope that we make sure that there's space for the community and the public to enjoy these buildings if we even acquire them, because I know it's a process, so.
That's definitely the plan.
Yeah.
Definitely the plan.
And this is not limited to these, we spoke about this earlier about other properties, so this will be just a general framework.
I think we
The
come back.
study may reveal changes in scope. These three properties are the initial
Okay,
sort of starting point for thinking about how to do it.
how long do you anticipate the study going on for? Until we
I
have
won't know until I get into it.
Okay,
but months, not years. It's
Yeah,
months.
no, it's definitely.
It's not days, it's probably not weeks, it's probably months to get it done correctly. Anything else?
Joe, can I ask?
Yeah, sure, please, come on up.
Will that require a public hearing?
If there will certainly be public meetings about it, it would require as a legislation, technically a public hearing is decided when we have to change legislation. But it might be also required for the acquisition of
The answer
property.
is yes.
The answer is yes, Dennis?
The
There
acquisition-
may be more than one time, I'm not an eminent domain, expert or
It's-
even.
it is a
even
secret.
knowledgeable, but there's a whole process governed by New York State law that has to be followed, I'm sure includes public hearings.
And I'm also assuming that whenever the study comes out, we'll do a presentation for the
Yes.
public.
Yes, it'll also be a very transparent process as we go.
I don't like the idea of the village on the property.
Well, we would be, oh, I'm sorry, I got thrown off. We would not be permanently owning the property in most cases. Most cases, it would be for the purpose of starting a redevelopment process, probably in some cases to build housing, some cases it might be to build some sort of public amenity. And then it might be turned, we might retain some of them, but that's all down the line. The idea now is really it's to take properties that are really not being anything being done with them and try to light a fire underneath them and get something
That
done.
makes sense, that
Okay.
probably makes sense.
But yeah, everything will be very public and the public will have time to weigh in about every aspect of this.
I, there's some suggestions.
Yes,
Thank you for your confidence in including me as a integral part of this. I think where it says the village administrator and the village attorney, I think it should be village administrator, village planner, and legal counsel. We did hire an expert law firm that specializes in eminent domain and all of its aspects. And so that's my suggestion. Wherever it reads village administrator, village attorney, it should read village administrator, comma, village planner, and outside, or just legal counsel.
Legal
Because I'm
counsel.
gonna be involved, I'm sure.
All right,
At various levels. but
so this
legal-
would be in the heading as well as in the last resolve, well, in the resolved
I
paragraph.
think it pops up maybe one or two other places, wherever it
Well, the
appears.
resolved is really where it needs to be, So where it says village administrator, comma,
Village planner.
village planner,
And
comma,
substitute village attorney with legal counsel.
and legal counsel are hereby authorized to commence review and compile, et cetera, et cetera. And then also do the same thing in the,
In
the heading.
Hold on a second.
Should I make the comment?
sure.
Just to be clear, are you saying you're forcing a sale with eminent domain or?
We would make an offer before we
Well, right.
force the sale, but yeah, the idea would be that, eminent domain ultimately is exercising the authority of the state to be able to acquire the property for a fair market value.
Yeah, I understand perfectly, but in the case with 65 Union Street, it's already gone back to the bank.
Yeah, we don't know that.
Well,
mean,
yeah, I
we-
know,
we-
but that's, so in that case, you could probably, it's not eminent domain.
In that case, what'll probably happen, let's say the 65 name was turned over to the bank and it's already been foreclosed upon
Yeah.
and turned over to a new owner. When the new owner gets the notice that we're trying to do eminent domain on it, they will come to us and say, hey, wait a second, we have plans. Here's what we're doing with this property. At which point we would take that into consideration as part of the
Well,
study.
okay, I'm just saying, I'm against eminent domain,
I know.
forcing a sale. I'm fine with negotiating with landowners or property owners in a sale, because they want to sell their property they can't manage for whatever reason, and then the village is now a partner, so to speak, and it's not a forceful take.
I think if at all possible, we would want to have a agreeable resolution of these properties. The problem is that we're not so sure that counterparties would be reasonable in coming to a resolution of it.
If you've gotten this long with buildings sitting like this, I think the first step would not be eminent domain.
Well, the first step is not eminent domain. That's the last step. The first step is
That's
the
first thing
study.
you said was eminent domain,
Well,
which means it's a force of sale, which
Yeah.
is
which is the
really
last
not-
resort,
I would be all in favor of the town buying properties to do a private-public partnership with parties that are amenable to this, but to do a forceful take, I would say absolutely not. I don't think the village should even attempt to do that.
But I think the
Yeah, but I
study would address that.
Yeah.
though? Wouldn't the study address that?
Well, if you are throwing around eminent domain from the get-go, you are saying that you want to do a forceful take.
As a last step.
We're reserving
That's
the-
not last step.
well,
The
hi,
first
hi.
step is to negotiate with owners of the properties, if they're foreclosed, that would be the first place to go. Another place to go is a property that has just been vacant for so long and the owner is not doing anything with it. Then at that point, but the study that you're gonna do study on properties that you're gonna do a forceful take, I wouldn't even want the town to do that.
All right, well, your objections noted. Does anybody else have any other public comment on this issue? Any comments or questions from the board?
Yeah, I think this is just a preliminary, study, just to see where we stand. And we'll take action from there, once we have suitable candidates for this type of action. And, I'm sure we would want to negotiate, cooperatively with the, property owners. And hopefully we could come to a resolution that way. But this is basically a tool that we have, as, Joe said, in our toolkit, that, to get properties that are blighted or not being taken care of and put them to public good. So I don't see any problem with this resolution.
Anything else? Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. This one, it's on a special page. And we are now, we can, we're now after 8 o'clock, so we can start the, public hearing. This is, do I have to make a motion to open it, because it's continued from last time?
We're both on for the first time, I believe.
No, this is, well, this
Oh,
one,
you're talking about the budget.
oh, no, we want to talk about the, let's talk about the, all right, let's get the budget out of the way, before we get to the public hearings, because it's after 8, but we did have to go back to the budget. Thank you for reminding me. All right, so what do we got here? Can I get, 6.3, resolution 2557, approving the 2025-26 general fund budget. Motion.
Second.
The budget's in the packet, right?
Yep.
And it's in the substantial form of the last time I looked at it, that we looked at it. Basically, just as a summing up of the budget process that we went through, we've had a couple of public meetings available to the public. We didn't have a lot of public show up at the meetings. We put out all the information about the budget was put out in a Dropbox and publicized in a number of different ways for the public to look at. We did not get a lot of public comment on it. The basic takeaways from the budget are that we held to the property tax cap of about 2%. We kept the property tax increase to that amount. We are being relatively conservative with our projections of revenue and relatively realistic about projections of expenditures because we don't like to be surprised. The budget, one of the things I will alert people to about the budget is that we have a structural deficit of about probably $300,000 to $400,000 a year that is just built into the budget. That's salary increases for staff that are either mandated or expected to come from union contracts, as well as other staff. It's increases in costs for maintenance of buildings and for occupancy of buildings and things like that. It amounts to over $300,000 which is about 5% of our budget. So our 5% of our budget goes up every year. But if we increase by the property tax cap, the property tax is our largest revenue source. If we increase by the property tax cap of 2%, that ends up being about $200,000
At the most.
at the most, $200,000 at the most. So we have that gap that we have to fill in, which is why the village has gotten a bit creative with generating additional revenues, including the hotel tax, which has generated about $200,000, $100 which goes into the general fund, $100 which goes toward tourism generation, principally the tourism grants that we give out twice a year. This year, built into the budget is about $400,000 projected for the marijuana sales tax of 3%, which is being allocated roughly the same way that the tourism or the hotel taxes is being allocated. Half the money is going to the general fund and half the money is going to most of it to our youth programs. But we're going to be right now. We haven't decided how to allocate that money because we're talking to the different youth organizations in Nyack to find out where the holes are. What can we fill? Where can we fill holes to provide services to the kids in our community to give them after-school programs and things like that. So we're gonna have to continue to be creative. We're gonna have to find we don't want to have to go outside the property tax cap. And so every year there's gonna have to be some sort of additional way to generate revenues. The good news is that we have generally been, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've been successful in budgeting and have generally generated small surpluses, which we'll be talking about in future meetings, but it's not necessarily for the budget discussion about what we do with that money. We have some maintenance and some equipment acquisitions that we've put off. We didn't put them in the budget because we were being conservative, but they are due at some point. So that surplus is going to go towards some of that. That said, that's basically it. If anybody has any questions about the budget from the public or from the board, feel free to throw them out.
Yeah, I have a question. I should have asked before. What's the difference between the homestead and the non-homestead, both the town of Orangetown and the town of Clarkstown?
The town's assessor, since forever, taxes commercial and residential properties differently. Commercial properties pay a little more, that's the non-homestead,
Which properties?
non-homestead, commercial, like
Commercial.
like a strip mall.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is the 400K, is that treetop?
It's based on a projection based on the fourth quarter of cannabis sales within the village, which in the fourth quarter was all treetop.
Okay. Will the medical have
No.
will there be a tax? No.
The medical
How about the illegal
doesn't have a sales
ones in the
tax.
village? What happens with them?
What happens with what?
The illegal ones that are in the village, there's at least one.
We don't get sales tax from them either.
Is there anybody doing,
Yeah, yes, there are, we don't generally comment publicly about, police actions that are in process, but suffice to say that we've made it known,
well, I've
that
reached out to.
we would like to, and I think people have made complaints, which is entirely appropriate, to make complaints to the state cannabis board as well as to the OPD about the allegations that some of the smoke shops are illegally selling cannabis, which they are not allowed to do. Hopefully there will be some motion on that.
That's how I look at it. We're losing money every day.
I think I'm not so much worried about, with them, I'm not so much worried about the tax revenue. I'm worried more about the fact that there's no regulation on them at all.
I agree.
That's
That's
the problem.
certainly an issue, but you're talking about a $400,000 gap. There's money lost.
There's
Every day, there's money that's not being acquired.
Yeah, that's correct. Anybody else have anything for the budget? Yeah, come on.
Speak here, but I just wanted to point out.
State your name and please state your name.
Pagano, Tallman Avenue. You just talked about rising costs and I find it sort of interesting, coincidental to your comments about eminent domain and taking on new property. So I would agree with the prior comment about you should be encouraging private investment in those properties and not taking on more responsibilities for them.
Fair enough. Anything else? Any other questions or comments about the budget? This is about as smooth a budget process that we could have possibly had in terms of the first draft of the budget was pretty much where we ended up. Nobody else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the budget is now passed. Congratulations, everybody. We've fulfilled one of our main statutory obligations to the village of Nyack. All right, let's go back. So these are both new. So can I get a motion to open the public hearing on proposed local law regarding adult use dispensaries?
Motion.
Second.
All right, the public hearing is now open.
Joe, can I just?
Yeah.
Set not having received comments from the planning board or the county planning board, this board is not yet in a position to actually.
I was gonna explain that. Yes, we're not gonna be voting on this today, just so everybody knows. Yeah, just for both of the two public hearings today. Just so people are aware, both public hearings will be continued at least to our next meeting and maybe further beyond that, because there are technical reasons in terms of changes to zoning have to be run by the county and the town. And not the town, just the county?
The village planning board and the Rockland County.
The local planning board as well as the county, and they've not yet gotten comments back on either of the two provisions. There won't be any action taken tonight, but we will discuss both items tonight and get a sense of the board on different aspects of those rules. With regard to the cannabis legislation, just to set the stage on what it's about. If you read the legislation, the idea is right now, the state of New York, the cannabis management regulations prescribe that in a village the size of Nyack, under 20,000 people, a cannabis dispensary cannot be within 2,000 feet of another cannabis dispensary. That's a state rule. However, we've been saying for a couple of months that we were concerned that the state might change that rule at some point. And in fact, the state is now soliciting commentary on changing the rule from 2,000 feet to 1,000. So we are now considering putting a local rule on that would put a proximity restriction on a adult use cannabis dispensary within a certain distance of another adult use cannabis dispensary within the village. I had mentioned earlier this I'd written in our newsletter on Monday, and that I've written publicly that I would be in favor of a 2,000-foot restriction mirroring what's currently in the state law between adult use dispensaries. And I think that I won't speak for the board. We talked about that. That would essentially, for any dispensary in downtown, would block out any other dispensary in the downtown, because 2,000 feet is a radius that pretty much from Main and Broadway will take out, we'll go all the way to South Broad, we'll all go way to South Nyack, all the way past the end of the business district to the north. It would go into the river on the east, and to the west, it would take it all the way up to about, I think, close to Midland Avenue, where the 2,000 feet from Treehouse would then pick up. There's also a church there, which would have its own zone of restriction. So that is what is currently on the table. I know people wanted us to consider other distances, probably mostly higher, some maybe lower. As part of just understanding where we stand with this, there also has been some news this week that was largely generated by my colleague Joe Carlin, who reached out to I'll explain he can explain what he did, what he found out. So,
yeah, okay, so thanks, Joe. So basically, I contacted the owners of the upcoming medical dispensary at the Starbucks, and also the the adult retail dispensary that's going to be in the old communal kitchen.
that was proposed.
Proposed, yes. So here's what I got. Here's some comments that I got from the owner of the medical marijuana dispensary that's going to go into Starbucks. I won't read the whole letter, but he says that key factors for their evaluation of where to, let me just backtrack. When he made the application to the planning board, the owner said they have 4 locations, and their license will allow them to convert one of them to a hybrid retail dispensary, and maybe in the future to go to a full retail dispensary.
A hybrid would be selling
Medical marijuana and also adult retail. So
Adult retail is, just so everyone understands, adult retail is what the state calls recreational.
okay.
Why they just couldn't call it
Recreational,
okay.
we don't know, but
Okay.
just so everyone understands.
Okay, so I spoke to him. I said, well, why would this location be good for you for a hybrid or a recreational dispensary? And he told me something very surprising, that they are looking at a number of factors, including parking, traffic impact, population density, competing dispensaries, community support, and ability to successfully navigate local zoning approvals. Typically, they found that the best adult use or recreational dispensaries are in commercial zones near grocery and department stores that have dedicated parking lots. And he summarized and said clearly the Nyack location at 80 Main Street does not meet these criteria. For these reasons, I do not anticipate that we would select Nyack as our hybrid location. We do see value in operating the location as a medical-only dispensary with a wellness focus akin to a specialty pharmacy or a homeopathic health facility. So according to the owners of the medical marijuana dispensary, they are not going to even consider going to a hybrid or a full recreational dispensary. Just want to make that clear. Regarding the communal kitchen location. So I spoke to him today, and basically they are pending in their process to get a license. And basically there were some bureaucratic snags, and they finally got the approval to move ahead with it. And they will be submitting a site plan to the Nyack planning board shortly. So they will probably be on the agenda for their June meeting.
So they're getting their license.
Yeah, once they got approval from the OCN, then they're able to move forward. But once they get the approval, which should be in a couple of days, every other adult retail or recreational dispensary within 2,000 feet is locked out.
But that would not stop the medicinal dispensary.
Not stop the medicinal dispensary, which operates under a separate set of rules. So, just want to let you know.
So it was interesting news because I think we've been assuming all along that the Starbucks dispensary would eventually become either hybrid or recreational, but they have said that that's not their intention. They have other locations that are better candidates for that. We also we knew that that there was a dispensary application at Communal Kitchen. We've talked about it here at the meetings about the fact that there was a possible location there. But we did not know how close they were to getting licensed, and that they would actually be licensed at the time before the medical dispensary opens. So what is likely to happen is that the medicinal dispensary, which has gone through the planning board process, it has to do with build out.
The microphone has been working, which has not been an issue, or is it?
Yeah.
For some reason,
This is turning on. There was a screeching sound.
go ahead.
So what's likely to happen is the medicinal dispensary, which has gone through the planning board process, is going to, that will at some point be opening, and the one at Communal Kitchen, which will be recreational, is going to start the planning board process now, but it does have its license. The one at Communal Kitchen will, under the state rule, block out any other downtown recreational dispensaries. And it would also block it out under any rule, under the local rule that we're proposing for Nyack. All right. So with that said, any comments or questions from the board? All right, public, we have people signed up?
Yes.
Let's take them in order. Call them out.
Hassan.
You say it's not, what's the time on it?
Oh, yeah, we'll do 2 minutes on the public comment.
2 minutes?
2 minutes.
Yeah, and use your microphone. Use the microphone because now we have the air conditioning operating over us.
The microphone.
So Mike Hassan, Pineapple Avenue.
Just turn it.
Mike Hassan, Pineapple, can you hear me?
Speak louder. Speak.
Mike Hassan, Pineapple Avenue. So I was a little caught by surprise by that news, and I had an argument about the zoning distance, and I'll still go forward with it and just make some points on that.
Just be advised. I want to remind everybody that we're not voting today on this.
I know,
So
but
there'll be.
we're.
That's fine. You're prepared to talk about that. I'm saying everybody should feel free to talk about it, but just be advised, there'll be another opportunity in 2 weeks, and maybe even after that to talk about it again. So, but go ahead. All right, you turned it off. Good. I'll give you back your time.
Okay, so I was gonna make a comment that and advocate for the board to, instead of a 2,000 foot zoning, to put it at a 4,000 or 5,000 foot zoning. And the reason why is I think that would allow the board to have control. Because Good Flower, these other dispensaries are there, let's call it communication dispensary now with this news. If that goes out of business, we have no protection in the downtown area against something that can be done where it's gonna go. And Joe, you said yourself that you didn't want it in the Starbucks area in the first place, right? I think if you put a stronger zoning law, which we're allowed to do because OCM allows home rule, where we can take our own action in our town, control our own destiny, it will ensure that if one of these places go out of business going forward, we can control. There's options for dispensaries where they can apply for variances and whatnot, and but it'll stop it so that so that the town and the village will have control over the issue. I've said this before, I'm gonna say it again. This is a new industry. Now we're talking about having 2 dispensaries in the downtown. I think it's moving really fast. And I think we're giving up a lot of control by letting it go where it's going without having a say in it. If one of these goes out of business, we're out of luck. There's nothing we can do. We're at the mercy of it. Now, I'm not happy to hear about the communal kitchen location at all. I understand that some compromises have to be made, and I think, Mayor, and you make good points that, there might be a positive impact. But there's a strong possibility there could be a negative impact. And we have presented evidence to the board from Nyack Emergency Room doctors speaking on this regarding the danger of kids, businesses in the town, many of what I think are the best businesses in town, Turiello's and other locations, feel strongly against this. So I think the board should take action and actually increase the zoning distance and not put the power in the dispensary's hands, but keep the power yourselves and not give it up. And I want to bring up one more point, if you don't mind.
Quickly, please.
This is a dangerous subject. And I'm not overreacting, I'm not villainizing marijuana, right? I have no problem with the Treehouse dispensary, but this past Thursday, right, just to show how fast this could move with unintended consequences, there was a Treehouse set up at the farmer's market, selling products.
No, we weren't selling products.
Well, it was right next to the children's story time over there. I don't think anybody's comfortable with that. I'm not as a parent, and I don't think anybody else should be. And that's an example of how fast this can go if you don't get control of it. So I'm advocating for stronger distancing on the zoning for those reasons.
Thank you. Linda?
Elena? Good evening. I'm Yelena, Yelena Graves. I live here in the village of Nyack. I submitted a letter to all of you with some materials and peer review articles from medical journals. But in addition to those, I'd like to make 2 remarks today. One is about process, the other one is about the substance of the meeting. The notice of public hearing advised the community that there's a hearing on a change to the law that relates to cannabis. That's it. And then it suggested that if you want to read the law, come to the village hall during the business hours and you can read the proposed law. This process as designed doesn't really tell us what the law is about, really. And it does not encourage public participation. It hampers it because most of us work during the business hours of the village hall. The village has a wonderful website where you post a lot of very useful information. This belongs there too. Please consider changing your process to encourage easy participation by the community so that they can make knowledgeable choices on proposed legislation and whether or not they want to come here and participate in the discussion.
Let me ask you a question. Was the draft resolution posted?
It was.
It was in the packet. It's in the packet that's online.
Well,
It is online.
the online notice that I read said, come to the village hall during the business hours. So, and I didn't see any link. It was
Fair enough.
not available. So I just request that you consider changing that process. Or on the substance of the discussion, this law as drafted only applies to recreational dispensaries, new recreational dispensaries, not new medical dispensaries. In other words, if a new medical dispensary decides to come in 6 months down the road, it can open at the village market around the corner from the Good Flower Medical Dispensary. I read the statute, I read the regulations. I don't see any legal basis for limiting this specific proposed buffer to recreational dispensaries only. And I request you to redraft this and make it applicable to any dispensary, regardless of this classification, unless you just want to promote more in town. So that's my second comment, and I very much appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom?
Yeah,
Sorry, we for the name of the address.
Dominic Tiller. Here you go. This is all the churches, all the houses of worship.
Watch out for the,
Yeah.
I'll hold it.
And our districts, our CC and our DMU1, right? So look at it, look where the churches are, look where the schools are, right? Look where it is, look where where they all are, where they come here.
Just let.
All right, well,
Oh, yeah, it's up here, so you can all look up this one.
okay. Oh,
There's another one?
There's another one, and then this one shows some of the non-legalized spots that are selling weed, and I put maybe 5 or 6, and I think there's about 10. So look where they are, look how close they are in our town and where they are, right? They're right down here, they're all here.
The illegal ones.
The non-legalized, your weed is legal, because you're selling it illegally, the police can't really do anything. You have to get them in a sting, you have to get them selling to minors. So you have these places here
Yeah.
that this town has not been able, and the police have not been able to deal with. OCN doesn't know what to do with it. And it's stuck for a long time. And here's another one. Now this is showing the 2,000-foot radius overlaid. Right, treehouse, you can see how close it is to churches already. And just because it's outside the distance, doesn't mean that that's really okay, right? And look at this down here, where this medical dispensary, which will become a recreational dispensary, don't let them fool you, that's a bunch of nonsense, that's exactly what they want to do. However, they have to come back with a special permit, they have to go through a special permit to do that, right? Because you guys pushed it through as a pharmacy and then made them go through a special permit, which they didn't need to as a medical dispensary. So no one on the board could really do anything under that special permit. So as far as I'm concerned, it went through improperly, and now it's here. Now you're playing around with these distances. So you have CC, this is where it was. You felt it wasn't fair. I'm not sure what wasn't fair about it. Fair that the rest of the town didn't get the weed down here, or fair because this is getting too much business? I'm not sure what part was not fair. But now you got communal kitchen coming right here. So that's what it looks like, right?
So three big orange circles that prevent.
Four.
anything else from
Four. We got 4. You got, if you do the market across the street from here, if that becomes one.
That can't become one, it's within the penumbra, it's within the 2,000 feet of the.
Well, then you got communal kitchen. So
Communal kitchen.
what I'm suggesting, I think other people are suggesting that what the petition was started on was the fact that the town only adopted the state minimum requirement.
Yeah.
And that 2,000 foot was the state minimum requirement. And now all you're doing is locking in the 2,000 foot. For towns that are less than 20,000 people, we are a third of that size.
Well,
There's a strong argument that it should be increased far more than 2,000.
okay, thank you. We can have these?
They're yours.
Thank you.
John, that's not opined. Although the law is very new and there's no case law, judicial decision, very little guidance. The minimum distance, let's say, is 2,000 feet. Can we make it greater? Yes, but you cannot make it effectively de facto prohibit, you know, basically limit the village to one
All you're doing
dispensary.
is scaring them.
Why can't it be?
All right, hold on, we don't have a dialogue here, you made your public comment, your comment time is done, he's the village attorney, he gets to speak.
We've
without
opted in,
interruption.
so we have to allow cannabis dispensaries. Does it mean we have to allow one on every block? Of course not. The minimum distance radius is 2,000 feet. We all know that. And there's other proximity regulations like for schools, houses of worship, etc. But can we make it greater than 2,000 feet? Theoretically, yes, but it can't be so much greater now that you've essentially limited the village, let's say, hypothetically, to one dispensary, or maybe 2. Because two might, this is all, we're
I
in
think-
uncharted.
Well, the
waters.
2,000 feet will limit us to one recreational dispensary downtown and one uptown.
And
That's
that
what 2,000 feet will do.
probably.
And that was
would be
what the
okay.
state set
That would be
out
okay.
as part of their initial rule. So I think 2,000 feet is very defensible from that purpose. The problem is that, and the reason that people are upset is that it doesn't apply apparently to the medical dispensary, which is under a different regulatory regime. So we end up with what people were really most objecting to, which was the former Space and Starbucks, which is a very public and very visible space being turned over to a medical dispensary. And I share that concern and that disappointment that happened. But we didn't have the authority to stop them from opening a medicinal dispensary. All right, let's get back to public comment. Chai is next.
Yes.
Chai.
Joe, can you do me a favor?
Sure.
Hold this for a second.
Okay,
That's the petition.
we can start with Tom.
And,
It's just shows how many people saw.
oh, okay.
Can you try?
Go ahead, go for it. Let go.
What?
You let it go then.
Let it
Oh, she wants to go?
Yes.
She's done. Okay.
At the last meeting, the validity of our petition was challenged. Specifically, there was concern that the majority of those who signed are not part of the Nyack community. Want to take a moment to directly address that concern. After the meeting, I contacted change.org to understand why some people I personally know to be Nyack residents appeared as being from New York City and other areas. Their response was, the listed location can be inaccurate for a number of reasons. It may be based on a user's self-set location, their IP address, or impacted by the use of a VPN. I'm going to provide a copy of that email this evening as confirmation. So while the location data on the petition may appear inconsistent, it does not reflect the full truth of who these signers are. I'm asking them to take this petition seriously. Not just the names on it, but the people behind those names. These are your constituents, your neighbors, the people who live, work, and own businesses in Nyack and its immediate surroundings. As of today, there are 930 people who have signed this petition. Some live in the village, some in South Nyack and Upper Nyack, and others in surrounding areas who are part of the daily life and culture of this town. The people who signed this petition are deeply invested in our downtown and in our children's futures. To further validate the petition, I reviewed the list and personally identified 85 additional individuals at a glance that I recognize as members of the Nyack community who are not correctly labeled by location. This is, of course, in addition to the hundreds of Nyack residents who are properly identified. Of course, I don't claim to know everyone, but I'm confident that many others on the list will be familiar to you as well. Far more people have signed this petition opposing downtown dispensaries than ever showed up in support when the original zoning expansion was first proposed. The contrast isn't close, it's significant, and it should carry weight in your decision-making. I reviewed the meeting minutes for the past 4 years, and I've done the work to compare. The number of signatures on this petition far exceeds the number of people who have ever come forward in favor. That should matter, and it should mean something. This is not a vocal minority making noise. This is a clear and growing majority speaking up in defense of the heart of this village. Please do not overlook them. I'm submitting this list to you today, not just as a document, but as a reflection of the voices asking to be heard. These are real people, not just names on a screen or 25 pieces of paper. I'm sure you have access to census data, a residence list, and can do a far better job than they. But I urge you to look beyond data points and hear what the people who signed this petition are asking of you, our elected village board of trustees. The request is simple. We are asking you to change the zoning back to its original standing to prohibit cannabis dispensaries in the DMU 1 and DMU 2 districts. It's not about prohibition. This is about responsible placement. Just because something is legal and popular does not mean it should be anywhere and everywhere. Not every legal business aligns with the visions of downtown.
I understand that a zoning change at this point will not stop the proposed medical dispensary from opening at the former Starbucks location. However, updating the zoning now can still serve an important purpose. It would prevent this medical dispensary from later converting to a recreational one if the medical model doesn't prove viable. And if the dispensary were to close, a zoning change would ensure that no future dispensaries could take its place in our downtown. Cannabis dispensary distance laws exist to reduce youth exposure, but placing them in the heart of downtown Nyack contradicts that purpose. We have a greater responsibility to protect our children by ensuring these establishments are kept away from places where young people frequent often. At present, there's a clear.
So I'm gonna ask you to wind up your remarks.
Okay. I'm almost done. At present, there is a clear ongoing public outcry to return the zoning to its original standing. This isn't about resisting change for the sake of it. It's about asking for thoughtful decisions for our village's long-term health, safety, and identity. Leadership means listening, even when it's hard, and your community is asking, please hear us and change the zoning.
Thank you.
Here tonight, they wanted the voices heard and.
Next up.
Well, that's it for the cannabis.
Okay. Does anybody else want to, there you go. Come on up. Just state your name, please, for the record. And, what village, town you live in?
Yeah, hi.
Use the microphone.
Hello? Hi. Yeah, Sean Hunt, officer. I live on Piermont Avenue, just locked into South Nyack. Just a couple comments. One, I think for the same reasons that you heard from the potential dispensary owners at the former Starbucks, I don't think it makes great business sense to open a dispensary somewhere where there isn't great parking. There's plenty of ideal locations that are just as central but have parking and lots of commercial real estate that is looking for tenants that's just off of the main street. And that would make everyone happy and a win-win solution for the dispensary and people with kids. So that's one comment. Two, it strikes me that it's sounding sort of as a done deal, and to the previous comments, it's not a done deal, right? Our destiny is in our hands. We can change zoning. It's also not a done deal in terms of if someone says that they're going to be a medical dispensary, that they don't try and convert into a recreational dispensary in the future. So to the extent that we can button that down with a change in zoning, that also sounds like a great thing. And then third, it's unclear to me what we can do for the illegal dispensaries, but it seems like that's really a lurking problem that we have to take care of for any legal dispensary and for sales revenue. I've had multiple friends tell me, I never knew this, that they could walk into local shops, buy shrooms, weed, we're talking about marijuana and cannabis, but there's a whole illicit drug industry in shops all over Nyack. And that doesn't sound appropriate. So that sounds like a separate issue that we need to take care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well. You state your name and where you live.
Good evening, I'm Kevin Sheehan. I live in Nyack on Grand Avenue. I wanted to share a couple of things. First of all, the idea that cannabis is alcohol is simply not true, that they're equivalent, right? That these are the same substances or same, they should hold the same place in society. You know what I can't do with alcohol? I can't carry it open and walk around the street and drink it. And so one of the things that I think we should do to mitigate the effects of the cannabis use in the community, since we've got dispensaries opening, is we should look at regulating the ability to walk around and freely smoke pot, because you can't do that with alcohol. If we're going to say they're the same, we should treat them the same. From that perspective, that's number one. Number two, I want to articulate what the policy should have been with respect to cannabis and dispensaries, and I want to urge you to take all appropriate legislative action to achieve the following policy. The policy should have been that dispensaries were kept solely in the CC, in other words, the commercial corridor zone. The reason for that is from a public policy perspective, there is significant opposition and unrest and discontent with having them in downtown. So you have been careful stewards in getting good tax revenue for us from the treehouse. Thank you. That was a good move. We can have our proverbial cake and eat it too if we just limit things to the commercial corridor. Now, I understand that, you know, we got the Starbucks dispensary coming in, and I'm not trying to urge action that would lead to a lawsuit. I'm trying to urge action that would paper this over and change course. Don't do anything that would lead to a lawsuit, but do things that will protect us in the future going forward. The policy should have been that this was kept in the CC. And if you just take a step back and you look at this from the perspective of realizing how much discontent there is in the community around downtown dispensaries of any stripe, whether it's medical or commercial, what you know is you want to achieve the position that keeps that tax revenue coming, but avoids that open controversy. We didn't need to have people pitted against each other for and against pot or cannabis. We could have had our cake and eaten it too. Thank you.
Anyone else on the public hearing? All right, do we need to make a motion to continue? Does anybody have comments from the board? Sure.
We do have to announce this, a date, time, place certain.
For the next meeting, okay.
So we have to make sure.
This is just, this is Calto, Nyack resident. This is just a technical question. I agree with everyone, or whatever, everything's been said, it's actually very inspirational. But I couldn't find anything about, the medical dispensaries versus, recreational and the distance law. So, I finally wrote to, the OCM and I said very specifically, and I can share this later with you, the email. But I specifically said, 80 Main Street will be a medical dispensary and a recreational dispensary open up within 2,000 feet. And they wrote back. No. So I'm just confused why there's this, I keep hearing about.
Well, they approved it.
They approved.
They approved both. They approved the dispensary at the Starbucks and they approved the dispensary, or at least we understand they're approving as of tomorrow, the dispensary at the Kino Kitchen.
And you can see it on the OCM map.
Okay.
You can see both
Was pending.
pending, both dispensaries. There was not one knocked down another one.
Right.
So I think OCM needs to get their act together,
Okay.
frankly.
All right. Well, anyway, so I think it's a point that can be I think it's still a point that should be clarified because it seems to me that what they're saying is that they are both cannabis dispensaries and they cannot be within 2,000 feet, whether it's medical or recreation. So I think we should just clarify that officially.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Cal. Anybody else before we continue the public hearing to next time? All right, this is by motion, right?
Yeah, you can get it.
All right, can I get a motion
Keep the public hearing
to
open.
keep the public hearing open until the village board meeting on May 8th, Thursday, May 8th at 7 or 8 o'clock? At 8 o'clock here at the village board on South Broadway in Nyack. I'm sorry, North Broadway in Nyack.
Motion.
Second.
Hold on.
What?
Dennis, go ahead.
Timing wise, the county planning department, how long have they had it in their hands? And the planning board here is meeting May 5th, I think.
Yeah.
So they have to draft a little memo, nothing fancy, but I think it's a little tight. I would go to the second meeting today. Because we need our own village planning board to meet on May 5th to offer an advisory opinion recommendation to you, the trustees. I mean, between the 5th and the 8th, I mean, it could happen, but.
All right.
I would actually.
You're not gonna be on the 22nd. Well, if we don't, we can continue to the 8th, we can always continue it then again. You can open and then continue it because we don't, yep.
Another alternative is, did we want to do back to back and go to the 15th, reschedule the meeting on the 22nd to the 15th? to allow that extra time. And so,
Scheduled meeting on the eighth to the fifteenth or the
no, no,
twenty-second?
the 22nd to the 15th.
I have the evening free. Does anybody else have the evening free?
On the 15th?
I'll be away. You don't need me though.
We always need you, so we need you at every meeting.
I'll be away.
I'll be on the plane.
You'll still be gone.
Oh, okay.
15th or 22nd won't matter to you.
Oh, okay, never
Alright.
mind, never mind.
Well, let's continue it to the eighth and then we can see where it stands after that and we'll maybe have some more information by then and we can at least talk about it. All right, so motion to continue the public hearing until May 8th at 8 o'clock here at Village Hall on North Broadway in Nyack.
Second. Motion, I guess. Second.
Motion
Motion second, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion is continued, the public hearing is continued to the eighth, where we will likely have to continue it for another meeting after that. Because of the, we need some feedback from the village planning board. All right, can I get a motion to open a public hearing on the zoning code, modifying regulations that prescribe the maximum height of fences, walls and edges at corner lots? Can I get that public hearing?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the public hearing is now open on that issue. Should we summarize the basic gist of that legislation? That legislation is also in the packet. Starting on page 3. This came about because there is a rule in the village that's a longstanding rule about the height of hedges on corner lots. Because the visibility issues it creates for traffic coming by. We do have some concerns that it might be true draconian, and so we were looking at options to try to allow for exceptions that would preserve some of these hedges in certain circumstances. As you can, if you read the legislation, what you'll see is that the significant changes have to do in paragraph 2 with the exemptions from 2i, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5. Dennis, anything you want to tell us more about in terms of how this has changed since you drafted it?
Yeah, it's a little difficult to articulate, but it boils down to something.
Get your mic, get your mic. They want to hear you about this.
It also addresses fences and walls, but the fences and walls aspect of it is inconsequential. So it's really about the hedges as you mentioned. So the walls and fence part of it you can essentially ignore, but because it's all part of the same sections in our zoning code, it would have been a major project to try to pull out walls and fences and treat them differently in a different section of the hedges, and it actually does make sense with the fences and the walls as well, to a limited extent. So back to the hedges. Right now, hedges are prescribed a certain way. They can't be greater than 30 inches, I think. Manny's here, Manny can chime.
Man, why don't you come up, because I know we want to express some opinions on this as well, so I'll let you get the word in.
They can't encroach into public rights of way, like sidewalks. They can't be greater than 30 inches, I believe is the maximum. And that's pretty much it, the way the law reads now. We recently received some comments from residents who were given some notice of violation that their hedges were not in compliance. And they made various arguments, some of which are reflected in that section 2, paragraph 2, little I through little d. So that's where those ideas came from, and also from some of you trustees. I think Jim Carlin was the motivator for some of these criteria. That's subsection 2 of section 2. Subsection 1, so subsection 2 is more subjective. I use that word subjective just for purposes of brevity. If you look through criteria, again, little I through little d, you'll see it mentions the hedge or wall has a socio-cultural significance of enhancement to the community neighborhood character, summarizing There also talks about some other things that require the building inspector to make a judgment. Which he could say, okay, this hedge is not really a safety concern, and by the way, these criteria, little I through little v, the property owner would have to present his or her documentation, why they should get an exception from the 30-foot maximum.
30
That- 30 inch. Did I say feet more than once?
Just want to make sure that gets covered.
Have you ever seen a 30-foot hedge? It's
No.
pretty impressive.
That would probably be a problem.
And by the way, Manny, and I chatted about a 30-foot hedge today. Should there be a maximum height, like beyond which it can never be, like 30 feet? But anyway, back to subsection 1 of section 2. This is more black and white. This is about safety. So if you look at the bottom of page 1, it says section 2, then you have subsection 1, and then there's little I and little double I. These are, again, a clear cut, has to do with safety, and I know, having spoken with Manny today, he's very comfortable with us adopting section 2, subsection 1, in little I. And
This is the one that says it does not obstruct a motor vehicle driver's, bicyclists, or pedestrians' clear view of oncoming traffic. That's 1. Number 2 is during the most recent 6 years, there's no record of motor vehicle or bicycle accidents relating to sightline obstructions caused by the hedge, fence, or wall being investigated and evaluated. Those 2.
So, yes, that's, Manny's very comfortable with that, and it's, oh, you're not comfortable with.
He's comfortable with the first 2 under section 1 is my guess.
Correct.
Yes,
That's what
my
I
guess is he's okay with section 1, subsection 1, which what section 1 does is it makes the exceptions that we've talked about at this meetings before, where you've got a one-way street, but you wouldn't, because of the way the one-way is, you wouldn't have to make a turn onto an obstructed sight line to get onto the street, sort of the Third Avenue issue that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Also, if there's stop signs, like we talked about at, is that High Avenue by, over by the hotel? By the car wash, where there is a large hedge, but there's a 4-way stop, and so nobody would be ramming through the thing.
So that's addressed in subsection 1 of section 2, and again, not speaking for Manny, but he's comfortable with that.
Well, they're addressed, I think, more specifically in section 1.
That's what I'm talking about.
In section 2-1.
Section 2, subsection 1, I was doing it back there, so section 2, subsection 1 is the safety stuff, it's pretty black and white, clear cut, and I think Manny's.
And those are clear exceptions that can be determined without any subjective discretion. Then you get into subsection 2,
And Manny can speak to his concerns over subsection.
which are more subjective. So let's talk about each of them. And Manny, you can give your thoughts on this.
Right, so that's what I wanted.
The first one, I think, is also relatively objective, because it just says that, so these are exceptions to, you don't have to take down your hedge or reduce your size of your hedge if these exceptions, in your opinion, these are mitigating factors for consideration. They're not determinative, any single one of them, but there's an evaluation that gets made where you weigh these considerations. Number 1 is, the fence or wall or fence or hedge does not obstruct a motor vehicle driver's or pedestrian or bicyclist clear view of oncoming traffic, stop signs, crosswalks, or other critical traffic-related sightlines. That would be subjective, but it would also be pretty much clear cut if there's no actual obstruction of the roads, correct?
Well, I still don't recommend that we go that far into it. We already have a regulation in place that. I don't think we need to take the code that deep. Exception 1 is clear. It gives me that opportunity and the property owner opportunity for us to look at it and see if it is a hazard or not, and whether they can keep the hedges, the wall, or the fence the way it is. If we go into exception number 2, now you open it to a lot of ifs. You're gonna open up a lot of questions, you're gonna create a lot of more additional work for us and for the board. But even if I look at it the way you explain it now, at the end of the day, most likely I'm gonna say no, because you're not gonna meet all of those requirements. So if you don't meet one, I can't give you a permit. Now I gotta send it to the village board of fields for a variance. Anyway, so if we just send that whole paragraph out and just deal with the first one, that gives us that leeway to go out and say, yeah, you're not obstructing, you got four-way signs, you got a traffic light, you got a one-way street, you're not posing any hazard. So yeah, keep your head, if that's how you want to do it. Or the second part to that is, we should put a limit on how high it can be. Not only because we're not only talking about hedges, we're talking about fences, we're talking about walls. We want a 10-foot wall in front of a house. No, and this is not only for existing situation, this is opening up for new. Somebody says, I want to put in a building permit to put a 10-foot high fence.
Let me just pause there. With fences and walls, I want to waste time looking the code now. I do believe there is an absolute maximum on fences and walls.
By the way you wrote this.
Not for hedges. It's in a different section of the code.
But you include it in this one, and right here, it says refer back to this particular chapter for fences, hedges, and walls. It's not.
All right, let's not get into how the maximum height of a hedge or a fence or whatnot. Those are all, we can take that up separately, but I think the issue that people are most concerned about, which has raised the reason people are here, is because of the issue when you have a hedge that's on a corner lot and it occludes the visibility of people trying to turn onto a cross street. Now, what section 1 does, section 2 subsection 1 does in both items I and little I1, little I2, is it sets out these objective criteria by which it doesn't create an actual dangerous condition.
Correct, yes.
You are adverse to the items in section 2 subsection 2, which rely more on your exercise of discretion as to issues relating to, were there accidents here? Is it of unique characteristic? Could be trimmed in a way that would keep it from being a problem? And I hear you, and we have to take that into consideration. Here's my question for you. Yeah.
I can clarify something. It's actually section 4, man, in the local law. I make a reference to the walls and fence. It says the restriction for a fence in front yard is 3 feet 6 inches, except as provided in the section that we're talking about amending. So that maximum height for fences and walls is in our code, and it's reiterated in section 4. It's just clarified that there's an exception to that. So, I'll look at it again to make sure that it cannot be an unlimited height. But again, you as the building inspector, you're gonna decide, the maximum height of the hedge should be, but okay.
Again, maximum height is not really what people are concerned about at this point. They're concerned about, do they have to cut their hedges down to 30 inches because they're on a corner? Let me ask you this, Manny. We've talked about the situations, like the code did not allow for exceptions in a situation specifically where there was a 4-way stop, for example. But we agree that a 4-way stop doesn't present any dangerous conditions because people are stopping and they're looking and they pull out and everybody can see each other at the corner.
Absolutely, yes.
We also agreed there was not a problem on Third Avenue, say, if somebody was going, if there was a hedge that would block your view if you were going westbound on Third Avenue, because you don't go westbound on Third Avenue, you only go eastbound. And so the westbound occlusion, if you were to be turning onto Broadway, didn't matter because you're not supposed to be going that way in the first place.
Correct.
So we agreed on that. That's what's captured in subsection 1.
Correct.
Section 1, subsection 1. Let me ask you this, because it was something that occurred to me this week, and I think I want to hear what you have to say about it. What if in order to preserve the hedge, the building or the landowner was willing to pay to erect a concave mirror across from where the road is, where the hedge is, to give them a 360 view of traffic coming both ways from that corner as you're turning onto, for example, onto Broadway? Because that mirror, I mean, they use it, for example, in Piermont, when you're coming down the hill from 9W into Piermont, and you have to make that S turn, that mirror works very well to let people know when there are people coming up the hill or down the hill so they can adjust their traffic accordingly. And you can think about it because we're going to continue this anyway. But it struck me as being you know, I would like to preserve the hedges. I understand why people are upset about them. They bought these properties, those hedges have been there for a long time. I think it's a jarring thing to see some of the places where the hedges have been cut down. So I'm sympathetic to their concerns, and I'd like to figure out a way for them to keep the hedges. And we figured out one way, four-way stop, but we don't want to put stop signs at every hedge. So a four-way stop isn't going to solve every problem. One-way streets, we thought about that, but that's not going to solve every problem, because we don't want to make we don't make one-way streets all over the village just to say the hedge. But a mirror is not that expensive as a solution, and it would be up to the landowner to pay to put it up and to erect it. And it would have to be on a telephone pole, or they'd have to get permission from an adjoining landowner to put it in a place where it would be able to show visibility. Is that something, do you want to address it now, or you want to wait and think about it?
I'd definitely like to think about that one.
Okay.
It's a lot to think about. So, yeah, and I mean,
Okay.
I'll bring it up on the next.
Let's think about it, because I agree with you that some of these discretionary provisions, which I think should be considerations in that, but I think they can be, I don't want them to be determined, because I think it's very difficult to put you in that position of having to make a decision of like, okay, this is a very pretty hedge, so we're gonna keep it, and this is an ugly hedge, so we're gonna not lob it up. Like, that puts you in a very difficult position. And I think we had to feel our way through this, so I think it's good that we did this, so we could see what it looks like in practice, but I understand your concerns about it, all right? Do you have anything else you want to say?
Yeah, just to give you, some information, we were, as of right now, we wrote out 50 violations, 50 notices to cut.
50 what?
50 notices to cut. Out of those, 28 complied without any pushback. 10 are in the progress. They said they already spoke with the landscaper, they're waiting for the weather, they thinking whether replanting, cut or whatever, but they agreed to cut. That's 38 out of 50. 10 have not complied yet, we only wrote 2 signs. So the majority of the people, out of 50, we can say 38 went into compliance without any issue.
Well, that's good that we've narrowed down the scope of what's in controversy. And let's take it from there as to we can continue this for 2 weeks. We still also do need on this one to get an opinion from the county and an opinion from the planning board. But in the meantime, let's work on, I would like to work on the concave mirror possibility, because I think that might be the thing that it's a way to protect the visibility while also not forcing the elimination of the hedge.
We'll go out to some of the sites, then we'll take that into consideration and put one there just to see how that works. So
Okay.
we'll do that and then we'll come back.
All right, so see if that would solve it on some of the disputes.
I'll see if I can clarify. Manny makes a good point. There should be some more specific
Criteria, yeah.
as to an ultimate maximum height. Even with the waivers being granted, there should be some absolute limits.
Sure. All right, any comments or questions from the board? Because I've been monopolizing the conversation, I apologize.
Yeah, I have. Because one, I do agree that enforcement was not the best. And I'm just like saying that lightly. Sorry, Manny, it just like that was not good enforcement. I do agree with section 1. I definitely think that we should definitely be paying more attention to those sideways. I will say, going down on 6th Avenue, I apologize